Most poker players believe they are playing ranges. They talk about ranges, study charts, and reference percentages. But when the cards are dealt, they usually play hands, one hand at a time. That gap explains most of the mistakes players make. Playing hands feels natural. You can see your cards, react to the board, and decide what your specific hand should do. Playing ranges feels abstract. There are no images and no emotional attachment, only distributions. Under pressure, the brain defaults to what feels concrete, which is the cards in front of you. Poker, however, is not a game of individual hands. It is a game of ranges colliding. Your opponent never has one exact hand. They have a collection of possibilities, and so do you. Every decision you make reshapes that collection, whether you are conscious of it or not. When you play hands, you ask what you should do with this specific holding. When you play ranges, you ask what your range needs to do in this spot. Those questions lead to very different decisions. This difference becomes clear on the river. You face a bet and your hand looks strong, but strong compared to what? If you only compare your hand to the board, you miss the real comparison. The correct question is how this hand performs against the range that is betting. That is the question poker is actually asking. Range thinking forces uncomfortable conclusions. It shows you that some hands belong in your range, but do not deserve to continue. They look playable and feel defendable, but they do not block bluffs, they do not beat value, and they do not protect anything meaningful. So they fold, even when they look good in isolation. This is why advice like defend this portion of your range often causes confusion. Players hear that and translate it into calling with a specific hand, but ranges do not call, hands do. The player's job is to choose which hands represent that defensive portion, not to save all of them. When you play hands, you protect feelings. When you play ranges, you protect strategy. Strategy does not care how attractive a hand looks. Range thinking also explains why consistency matters. You cannot improvise every situation. If you always fold the same category of hands in the same spots, your range becomes transparent. Strong players do not defend randomly, they defend coherently. This is where concepts like blockers, polarization, and range advantage begin to matter, not as buzzwords, but as tools for selection. They help you decide which hands do the work and which ones step aside. Playing ranges also creates emotional distance. You stop taking losses personally, because it was not your hand that lost. It was a distribution performing as expected. Some hands win, some hands lose, and the range continues. This is why professionals can fold hands that amateurs never would. Not because they are fearless, but because they are detached. They do not see a hand, they see a job. If a hand blocks nothing, beats nothing, and protects nothing, it does not matter how strong it appears. It has no role, and hands without roles do not continue. Once you understand this, poker becomes quieter. There is less debate and less justification. You stop asking whether you can really fold this hand, and you start asking whether this hand belongs here. That is a much easier question to answer. Poker punishes players who fall in love with their cards. It rewards players who treat hands as interchangeable parts, as tools rather than trophies. If you want to stop feeling confused on rivers, stop asking your hand for guidance and ask your range instead. That is the difference between playing poker and playing cards. I am Alex Mercer, and that's The Spot.